Want to take a little quick moment to introduce you to today's experts. Dr. Madeline Moss has been with us before. She's no stranger here to Parental Guidance. Welcome back.
You.
We're so happy to have you. She is the medical director of pediatric cardiology at UHealth Jackson Children's Care, and she's earned her medical degree from Georgetown University of Medicine, and she completed her residency at Baylor College of Medicine, and then she went on to pursue a fellowship at the University of Miami Jackson Memorial Medical Center. She's board certified in pediatric cardiology, and she specializes in fetal cardiology, pediatric and adult congenital heart disease, arrhythmias, cardiomyopathy. You're going to have to help me with that one.
Cardiomyopathy.
Cardiovascular. There you go. Cardiovascular disease, echocardiography, heart failure, and sports cardiology. You are doing things I can't even pronounce. So clearly you're our expert today. Thank you so much for being here. She's also fluent in English, Spanish, and French. We're going to keep to English today, but she is dedicated to providing patient-centered care for children and young adults with congenital or acquired heart conditions to help them lead healthier, longer lives. That's exactly what we're talking about today. So, Dr. Moss, thank you again for coming back.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. Thanks so
Of
much.
course. Of course. And so I'm thrilled. Not every episode do we have two experts, but today we do. We also have Kevin E. Lawrence, who serves as the Administrative Director for the Division of Athletics and Activities for Miami-Dade County Public Schools. This is the third largest school district in the nation. Families, I don't know if you're aware of that, but I think that's something to be very proud of. And Mr. Lawrence, you are juggling a lot, no doubt. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be
Oh,
here.
yes, I'm thrilled. I want to tell our audience a little bit more about you. So, Mr. Lawrence has over 25 years of experience across all levels of education, K through 12, and he's dedicated his career to transforming schools and empowering students. I think that is awesome. His journey has taken him from classroom teacher, department chair, assistant principal, vice principal, principal of middle and high schools, and he is the former principal of the historic Booker T. Washington Senior High School, and he spearheaded transformative academic success, leading the school to its two highest graduation rates in history. I feel like I want to do a standing ovation for that before we even get started. That is incredible because truly, educating today's youth is changing the world tomorrow. We really believe that. So I'm so encouraged by the work that you have done and continue to do. So under his leadership, countless students graduated with honors, pursued higher education, and now in his current role, he oversees the Miami-Dade, the district's athletics and activities programs, ensuring that students are excelling not only academically, but also at extracurricular sports. And his vision is to ignite excellence in every child, supporting their development as scholars, as athletes, as leaders. Mr. Lawrence holds a Bachelor of Arts from the University of South Florida, a master's from Nova Southeastern, and an additional graduate degree from Walden University. So, Mr. Lawrence, we're ready to pick your brain about all things Miami-Dade athletics and about this new announcement. We're going to get to that. So, thank you again for spending your lunch hour with us. Well, I am ready to get started. And just if Mr. Lawrence, if you would be sure that you're just unmuted there, then we can hear you good. We are going to get started. I have a few questions. Again, please drop in that Q&A if you have a specific question. But today's topic, we're talking about, protecting young hearts and just the critical role of EKGs in high school sports. I'm of the early 2000s generation of high school students, and that would have never been a thought of like, I need an EKG to play sports, but it's really becoming the topic now. So we're going to get into that today. But before we do, can you explain exactly what is an EKG and what does it show about a child's heart? Dr. Moss, can you explain that?
Well, an EKG is a very simple and non-invasive test, and it's not a very costly test either. That actually can tell us quite a lot about a child's heart. It is not going to tell everything, but it certainly adds to our ability to pick up on important things for kids who are about to play sports. So it's a electrical recording of the patient's heart, and it gives us information about heart rate, heart rhythm, uh, conduction timing that can be very important, and even some sort of anatomical information about chamber size or increased muscle mass, which can be a really important factor in athletes who are at risk for sudden cardiac arrest.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't realize it told you that much information. I kind of thought they were always just about rhythm or heartbeat, but that's amazing you're gathering that much information. Can you tell us why it's so important to include an EKG in a sports physical, especially for young athletes?
This is really a hot topic and a very controversial topic, and I really want to thank Mr. Lawrence for
Mm,
pushing this because I
mm,
think in the future, there will be more mandates for this. In the past, the American Heart Association had only endorsed a targeted, 14-point, history and physical, screening method that although it did help, identify patients at risk, simple EKG screening adds actually a much higher degree of detection, with sensitivity rates for adding EKG increasing from about 18% to 87% with
wow,
adding the EKG, specificity going from 68% with history and physical alone up to 94% with EKG screening, and a positive predictive value for important heart disease going from 0.3% in just the routine history and physical screening to up to 13 to 14% if you add the electrocardiogram.
wow,
So
wow.
I think, although this is still controversial, that eventually it will perhaps be a recommendation or even a mandate. um, it is starting as they change the recommendations, the European Cardiac Society, and then further studies in Stanford University in Seattle changed the ECG criteria for screening of athletes, which has now markedly decreased the false positive rate for the EKG screening. That was part of the controversy. And then that makes it much more cost effective as a mandate.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. There's so much going on in the background. I think we don't realize that they can't just stamp a mandate on something. But I love how Miami-Dade County is, moving this
I'm
forward and spearheading. I think that's
so
awesome.
proud of that. Thank you,
Awesome.
Mr. Lawrence.
It's really awesome. And Mr. Lawrence, I'm about to ask you more about that. One more thing, Dr. Moss, what types of heart conditions can go undetected without an EKG and how serious can they be?
Quite frankly, when it comes to sudden death in the young athlete, which is the number one cause of death in
Mm,
the athlete, uh, almost every cause can be
mm,
undetected.
wow.
You can glean some idea about it from a history and physical, and again, EKG really enhances that. But of the major causes, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy or heart muscle disease is often undetected until the first event, which can
Mm,
be sudden cardiac death. And that can be exacerbated by sports participation because the body is producing a lot of adrenaline, causing the heart to contract with more force, and increased metabolic rate is required, and decreased perfusion to the coronaries in that case can bring out the diagnosis that you just don't know about it until you're under stress. That's the number one cause in the US, but there are other causes. Some kids are born with electrical pathway in their heart that can conduct too rapidly, and they also may not know about that until the first episode is either an aborted sudden death or sudden death itself. And
mm,
many of the other causes also are just unknown. Um,
right.
so
Wow. It's such a reminder of how fragile our bodies are, how strong they are, of course, but like just intricately fragile as well. Okay, Mr. Lawrence, let's talk about the school district making the EKGs a requirement now. Tell us a little bit more about why and kind of how we came to that.
Well, first and foremost, again, Sierra, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today. Dr. Moss, you're thanking me, but I want to thank you for the work that you do each and every single day. You're on the front lines. You're actually touching and saving lives. So I just want to thank you for your work and for your colleagues. And Sarah, to answer your question, the initiative was designed as a proactive measure to mitigate potential medical emergencies among student athletes here in the district. And it really prioritizes their health and safety by identifying underlying cardiac conditions early, which
Mhm.
will ultimately reduce the risk of catastrophic events, including sudden cardiac arrest. Our goal is to create a safer environment for all student athletes, while at the same time ensuring that families are informed and empowered to make decisions to best support their child's well-being. I'll say that our school board got behind this a while ago, so it'll be wrong for me to take credit. Board member Alonzo, along with our other amazing board members, they saw a need for this. At the same time, we talk about the loss of life, and in my opinion, and our district believes this, losing one life to something like this is one life too many. So if there is an opportunity or the potential to save a life, then we have to do these things. So honestly, again, it means a lot to me and to our district to have me here today, just speaking on this. And to everybody that's listening, I want everyone to understand that our goal is to save lives.
Yeah, that's right. That's awesome. And I would
Wow.
say if you're a parent of a child with a, with a child in school, or someone who has, maybe your kids aren't there yet, but when we're done with this episode in about a week or so, we'll have it where you can send it out, but forward it on, forward it to your class WhatsApp chat, forward it on to friends who have children, because I think this is a movement, and to understand how, hearing from you, Mr. Lawrence, but also straight from a cardiologist, of just how important this is. I think parents, this is information they need to know and understand. So I want to talk, Dr. Moss, a little bit more about the risk, help us understand it. And then we're going to talk more about the process of, okay, how is that going to change things for, students in Miami-Dade County? But tell us, how common is sudden cardiac arrest in children or in teens? Because we're not just talking about, later teens, right? I mean, this can affect children too, right? Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked this, Sierra, because as a mom of 6 and a grandma of
Amazing.
9, I mean, this really, when we hear about this in our community, and actually our community recently suffered the loss of one of our athletes, and we're all still shaken by this and mourn with them. But I also want to reassure parents not to be overly concerned either, because it is not a common finding. But I
Right.
agree with Mr. Lawrence. Saving one life
One life.
is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
everything. The
That's right.
potential for that young life for the betterment of society, it's just so important. But let me give you some of the statistics. Part of the reason that screening hasn't been mandated in the US is because the data is so variable in what the real risk may be. So while it's low, I definitely think this is really important. So the overall, if you look at, and I really reviewed a lot of studies, that some of the major and better studies would give an overall risk of about 2 to 3 patients in about 100,000 athletes. But if you dissect that down and you look at many other different studies, it could be as high as about 1 in 4,500 to
Oh,
as
wow.
high as 1 in 900,000. But most studies would
Right.
average at about 2 to 3 per 100,000. But then you also have to dissect that group of patients, because within that group, there are higher risk categories, such as males are 5 to 6 times more
Wow.
likely to have an episode than female athletes.
Wow. Interesting.
And really, really important is African American athletes have the highest risk. And even by sport, basketball and football are the higher risk. And there are studies that show a highly competitive African American athletes in basketball, the risk can be as high as 1 in 4,800.
Wow.
And
It's
the
too
other,
high, whatever it is.
it
Like you
is
said,
too
the
high.
risk is the
And
risk. Yeah.
the other high risk
Yeah.
group is uh, military recruitments, because theirs can be as high as 11 per 100,000. And some of that's because they're a little bit older group and may have early coronary disease and very extreme conditions that they're
Extreme.
exposed
Yeah.
to, including
Right.
temperature and prolonged exposures.
Right.
So we have to look at age, sex, the sport that they're going to enroll in and the level of participation. And if you look at those college athletes that are performing at the very high level, it could be as high as about 1 in 18,000. So a lot of statistics, but
Mhm.
I think it's an important problem and deserves screening.
That's good. All right, I know you started that with saying, okay, now don't, every parent doesn't need to be terrified now of this, but are there certain risk factors or warning signs that parents should watch for? Because I've never given it a thought, for my children, but now I'm like, oh, is there something I should watch for?
Absolutely. So first off, always look at your family history. And you want to look at a few generations and look for early sudden death. Usually they say less than 50 years of age, or certainly if you know that it was from a cardiac problem, a heart
Okay.
muscle disease, um, early coronary disease, but that's in the older individual. And the child themselves, anytime there's a complaint of chest pain with exertion, palpitations or irregular heartbeats with exertion, unexplained syncope, that means unexplained fainting
Oh,
episodes.
wow. Okay.
Those are
Okay.
red flags. And I also want to state something that there are certain phenotypic or physical characteristics that we should also maybe put a red flag there. Some very tall, thin individuals that may have, in particular, long arms, long fingers, long toes, very flexible joints. If the parents noted that from early age, the child's super flexible or has had frequent dislocations of a joint. Certain chest wall anomalies, like the so-called sunken chest or the pectus excavatum, can be associated, or even certain eye findings like significant myopia or nearsightedness or dislocation of the ocular lens.
Wow.
These are and very flat feet. There are certain things, of course, the physician needs to be
Yeah.
aware of these things too. It's
Yeah.
not easy, is the screening.
I was about to say, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it clearly, which is why this is so important. And if a child has, you said family history, but what if a child has no family history, no symptoms, could they still be at risk?
Yeah, it's another excellent question, and the answer is 100%
Mm,
yes.
mm. Okay.
Because the number one cause in the US at least is cardiomyopathy. And while it's usually hereditary, uh, we have to remember that many people don't really realize what the cause of death was in some of the relatives. And not only that, there's always the patient who has the de novo mutation where there won't be any family history. And
Mhm.
many of the electrical reasons for sudden death, you really just don't know about it or don't have symptoms until the episode of sudden
Mhm.
cardiac arrest occurs.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's the reason for this screening being so important.
So important. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
easy to kind of see the headlines and be like, oh, okay, that sounds good. But I'm so thankful for opportunities like this where we really can dig in and go, wow, like that's why this is needed. And I'm just so proud of Miami-Dade County of how this is. I think this is going to be a catalyst for, a wave of awakening in the nation. And I'm excited about this. Mr. Lors, I'm really excited. So I want to know, we're getting questions from the audience too of like, okay, who's going to be providing these screenings? So let's talk, nuts and bolts of how is this going to roll out. So how and when will the EKG requirement be communicated to families?
So right now, the new screening requirements will be communicated through the schools themselves,
Okay.
principals, athletic directors, coaches, school staff, trainers. They will provide direct outreach to families. Additional information will be shared through school websites, social media platforms, possibly community newsletters. It's a multifaceted approach which ensures that parents and guardians are fully aware of what's taking place and that the screenings themselves, the physical process, and we just want to be transparent and also provide accessibility for everybody. So it's going to be coming down the pipe.
That is awesome. And is it rolling out for certain ages or is it everywhere that there would be a sports program, I guess?
So the primary focus right now is for grades 9 through 12 for this
Right.
initiative.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Now, how does this new requirement impact the start of the sports seasons? Does that change
So
things?
Well, there are some things that are up for debate and discussion, but right now we're moving ahead as scheduled. We're still going to conduct our regular physicals that take place beginning in June. So
Right.
those physicals will take place. It's just coordinating with some partners now to see how we could include free of charge EKGs
That's
to
great.
student athletes. That part hasn't been finalized yet, but it's still in the works, and we just want everybody to stay tuned, be patient, and we're going to try our best to conduct EKG screenings
Wow.
and physicals at the same time.
That's awesome. That was my next question was where, will it be offered at school? Do families need to coordinate? How much does it cost? All that.
Right. So they'll be available at designated school sites throughout the district to provide families with convenient access. We know that's important. For families who prefer, they may coordinate screenings through their own healthcare providers or community partners.
That's
But
great.
again, the goal is to offer flexible options so that families can decide what works best for them while meeting, the requirements for this new athletic participation initiative.
That's great. That's great. So in terms oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Moss, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to
Please. Yeah.
reiterate something too to the folks out there that while EKG screening is very helpful, it is still not foolproof, and that, you know, uh, in some studies, more than 50% of cases of sudden cardiac uh, arrest and death can be missed regardless of getting the screening EKG, but it certainly adds to the detection. So that just needs
Absolutely.
to be said also.
Absolutely.
If I can, Sierra,
Please.
I just want to piggyback onto what Dr. Moss said, and I want to thank her for saying that because in no way, shape, or form or fashion do I want to say this is going to guarantee
Mhm.
anyone's complete safety. That's
Right.
not the case. Again, I
Correct.
just want to reiterate that we want to provide everyone with an option and give them an opportunity to do something that may possibly save a life. And,
That's
and we
great.
want to open up these options to everybody. I would rather say we extended this and gave you a chance to even conduct the screening while
That's right.
not doing anything at all. And
That's
that's the
right.
purpose.
I see it like,
Bravo.
wearing a seatbelt doesn't mean you're never going to have a wreck, but it's the
Right,
wise
that's
thing
right.
to do?
Correct.
So I think this is awesome. You're putting the tools in the hands of the parents to do what is wise. And so mandating, I think, is great. And you said about cost involved, that's all going to shake out soon. Just stay tuned. That is awesome. I want to whoever's working with y'all to try to work this out. I'm like, come on, do this for the families. This is great. So let's say, the athletes are going to get access to this, the families are going to get access. Dr. Moss, and what do they do if, they get a red flag on their EKG? Or what are the next steps? Are they, cut from sports? What does that mean?
Yeah, so, again, the red flag there, I'll say it again, the false uh, positive rate is not insignificant. So of the patients that are flagged, certainly a, a big good percentage of them will still have a normal heart. And in fact, especially elite athletes will have sometimes interesting EKG changes that we normally wouldn't see in the untrained athlete. However, the parent should pull the child from sports until further investigation is obtained. They should contact their pediatrician, who will then likely refer them to a specialist like myself and my
Mhm.
colleagues to further investigate the possibility of a serious uh, cardiac lesion, and that would entail some additional testing that could include uh, advanced or prolonged cardiac monitoring, exercise stress testing, and very likely echocardiography to look at the structure and the function of the heart, and in some cases, uh, CT angiography of the coronary arteries. So
Okay.
I would say if you're red flagged, at least refrain from competitive sports participation until you've had the further evaluation, the
Further,
second
yeah.
tier evaluation. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Okay, you mentioned about false positives. Some parents might be like, what if I get a false positive? Because they're not perfect. We said that. But how accurate are these tests in children?
Actually, they're quite accurate. As I said before,
Okay.
the sensitivity rate for an EKG and in ruling out false negatives is greater than 90%.
That's great.
And actually, some studies suggest, and it's been confirmed, that the number one cause of sudden death in young athletes can be detected, has a 90% detection rate with an EKG alone.
Wow.
Not
Yeah.
all, but
But
um,
yes,
it's
it's
there.
important.
It's pretty good,
Well,
and
let's
it adds much more than just the history and physical alone.
right. Right. Oh, that's great. That was one of my next questions. But looking at, we always kind of remind of the cost benefit analysis in the sense of, is there any risk involved in getting an EKG?
I'm going to have to say zero risk,
Awesome.
but I have had patients that develop a little rash from the EKG
Okay.
electrodes. Some kids have a little bit of anxiety, but we always know how to deal with that.
Yeah.
So I would say,
It seems like a no-brainer, obviously.
it's a
I mean, looking
no-brainer.
at the risks and what it can
Almost
provide.
no, yes, almost no risk. And when you compare it with the discomfort of some of the other screening uh, mandates, such as, pap smear and mammography, there's just almost no discomfort to it either.
That's great.
So
That's
I
great.
think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. I think if there's parents listening who maybe your child isn't involved in sports in the district, maybe they're on a travel ball team or maybe they're at a private school, I think you need to go to those coaches and say, "Hey, what are we doing to what's the plan for, making sure our kids stay safe?" Or of course we're the gatekeepers of our children's health and whatnot. So as a parent to think, all right, and maybe we need to go schedule one on our own if you're not in the district. But I love that the district's working to provide these. Okay, one more question, Dr. Moss, about that. How does the EKG complement the rest of the physical exam, ensuring a child is fit and ready for sports?
Well, the history and physical is going to have a detection sensitivity rate of about 18 to 19%. That increases to about 87% with the
Wow.
addition of the electrocardiogram and increases the positive predictive value of an important lesion from 0.3% with history and physical alone to of almost 14% with the
Wow.
EKG added. It's
Again,
it's
no-brainer.
it's a
It
big
seems like
deal.
a no-brainer to
And
me.
especially it does, while there's 50% causes that an EKG is just not going to help you. Some of the causes of sudden death in athletes, they're varied. An EKG will not pick some of those up. Certain coronary anomalies, which
Right.
is the second most common cause in middle school sudden cardiac arrest,
Mm.
and other aortopathies, hereditary aortopathies, where the child's born with a weakening of their vascular structures, the aorta, that's not going to show up on the EKG. But in the
Oh, yeah,
number one and cause, it can be 90% predictive. So it's really something that I think should be added to the traditional H&P history and physical
definitely.
evidence.
We received a question from our audience. I think this is a great question. Mr. Lawrence, I know you said that this is going to roll out right now for ninth through 12th grade. Dr. Moss, maybe you can speak to what is the appropriate age, I guess, to screen a child? Is it because there's so many more children now are playing just harder sports so much younger? So what would you suggest? Maybe there's parents listening who their kids are young, but they're playing hardcore sports. What would you suggest?
This is also a controversial subject that the big boards, American Heart Association and American Academy of Pediatrics, are discussing. There's uh, no guidelines yet, but it has been suggested that at the middle school level, perhaps the first EKG should be done at the middle school participation level, and then again at high school. So,
It's how their body is changing too, I
and it's
imagine.
probably going to end up being a recommendation that is ongoing.
Oh,
Just
okay.
because you've had one normal EKG, again, doesn't mean the following year that
Right.
you could not be at risk, because certain diseases are progressive and will not show their faces at a younger age,
Oh, wow, yeah.
or even on that routine EKG, it can show up later. So I think it would be an ongoing thing, but perhaps the first one should be done even at the younger middle school level.
That's great. Yeah, like a mammogram. You don't just get it one and done. It's like you've got to
Absolutely.
stay on top. Okay.
100%. Yes.
That's great. That is great. Mr. Lawrence, talk to us about how the district is preparing coaches, school nurses, with handling this new process.
So, yes, and that's a great question. And I think the process itself is just an extension of the existing physical examination requirements that we have. Coaches, athletic directors, trainers, school staff, they're going to receive clear communication and training to ensure that they understand the new procedures and that they can effectively inform student athletes and families. We want to involve everyone in the athletic program so that they're knowledgeable about updates and they're prepared to support students and families through this new process. And additionally, families can opt out of the screening process if they choose. And I think that that's a pretty popular question because I've gotten a lot of calls on this. And there
Yeah.
is the option for families to just say, I don't want to be a part of the screening.
Gotcha. Gotcha. No, that makes sense. They can have the autonomy and the decision making. Sounds like there's a lot of benefits to doing it. What I'm learning today. This is great and so helpful. All right. What about Mr. Lawrence? What should parents be doing now to prepare for the upcoming sports seasons with this new requirement?
Another great question. And as a parent myself, you're asking the questions that I think we would all want to know.
Hmm.
Parents are encouraged to connect directly with their schools administrators, speak to the athletic directors, speak to athletic trainers, because we want to make sure they fully understand that the new physical and EKG requirements are something that's what you just said, Sierra. It's something of benefit. And
Yeah.
by having these conversations, families can make the best decisions for their child's health
That's
and
right.
athletic participation because I don't want it to be something that's being forced upon anybody, but I want people to be able to make informed decisions. I think our superintendent, I think our district strongly encourages people to make a decision that's best for them. And
That's
I
great.
think you open communication between families and school staff. And I think it's essential in supporting the well-being of our student athletes. And I think
Right.
people need to know because a lot of times when you present something new to people, if they don't understand, it can be something scary. It can be the
Right.
unknown is always something that we kind of run away from, or when we're not as informed as we should, we may not make the best decision. So I think a part of it, and I think Dr. Moss can even chime in on this, when you consult with someone, you always give them the options and you explain what everything is. And then you allow an individual to make an informed and best decision for them. And I think that's what we're trying to do for every child.
That's right.
100%, I agree with that, because
That is,
some families have, reasonable reasons why they wouldn't want to do it.
that's right.
There's anxiety involved and sometimes further testing that may incur, a cost, and you weigh the risk and benefits given the findings, on the EKG or just the information provided and the overall somewhat low risk. That's absolutely right, I believe in that 100%.
That is right. That is why I personally am so thankful for this parental guidance series, especially this topic today, but all the topics truly, because as a parent myself, we're all parents here, the three of us, and exactly what you said, we are our child's number one advocate. And if we're going to be a good and informed advocate, we need to be educated and understand our options, understand the costs, the benefits, all the things to, those options that are available. And to your point, one of our audience members sent a message and she said, "Thank you for answering my question, my specific question, because my son is starting middle school, very athletic, starting competitive sport." And so that parent, that's what they're doing. They're here, they're listening, they're getting the facts. And so they can make that informed decision for their children. And that really is just the heart behind everything that we're doing. I love that Miami-Dade County is pushing this out. I hope that this webinar will get to go out to all the families so that they can listen and see, directly from Dr. Moss the benefits and all of the nuances of this, of having an EKG for your child. So this has been hugely informative and so helpful. Before I wrap us up, I have a couple more questions just to our audience. If you have any other specific questions, please put those in that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and I'll get those in front of our experts here. But I know you mentioned, Mr. Lawrence, that we're rolling this out for 9th through 12th. And then I love what you said, Dr. Moss, about, maybe middle school is a good time to start thinking about it. And like you both have said, I think we'll see this maybe start rolling out earlier and earlier, later down the road. But right now it is a requirement for 9th through 12th in Miami-Dade County, again, with the opportunity to opt out. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Parents do have the option to opt out of taking the EKG. The district is currently finalizing an official opt-out form that'll be distributed through schools to ensure families can easily indicate their choice. It's
Great.
again, it's not something that we're forcing anyone to do. A family can collectively come together and say, well, we elect not to. And I think our focus is just providing families with a choice while maintaining our commitment to student health and safety.
That's awesome. And you know what you said about even one life. And I think bigger than the conversation we're having here now, which is huge. It's a very important, like we said, we don't want to see one life lost in Miami-Dade over this. But Dr. Moss, you mentioned the other things that can be found on an EKG. Like this could change the trajectory, change the life of many families who might discover something they didn't know about, be able to get the help that they need to avoid,
Yes.
an injury in some other way, correct?
Absolutely, and since some of these things are familial with genetic basis, then, it discovering things in some of the other family members that you would not otherwise have known about. But I also want to reiterate the criteria that Mr. Lawrence discussed. The incidence is a little bit higher in that 9 to 12 grade, so that's a good starting point at least.
Love it. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been hugely helpful and jam-packed full of great information, both from a medical stance, but also for boots on the ground, what is happening in our county. So I love that, Dr. Moss. Thank you for joining us. And Mr. Lawrence, thank you for spearheading this. I know you said there's a lot of people behind this, and we're excited to see it rolling out and to know that this has been in the works long before, sadly, there's been issues in our community that have immediately affected because of this. But this has been, you guys have been working on this. And so to see it rolling out is really, really exciting. I love it. Someone said, where can I get my child screened today? I love it. So there's options out there for sure. And then if you're in Miami-Dade, watch for the email, correct? There's going to be information rolling out from the schools. Is that right?
That is correct. And I just briefly want to, recognize our school board and our superintendent for pushing this so hard. We have people that genuinely care. And that's what it's about. When it's all said and done, I think we're fortunate to be here in Miami-Dade County Public Schools where we have people that care about the well-being of children.
It's awesome.
And there are some other things that we do have to work through, but at the end of the day, our sole focus is what I started out the conversation with, the how fragile life is and how important it is for every life, not just one, not just some, but
That's right.
all. And I think our school board is really behind this. And I think as things continue to roll out and parents get more understanding of what it is that we really are trying to do, more people would be more inclined to want to take part in this and help. And again, one life lost is too many. And the goal is to try to save as many lives as possible. So a
Mhm.
huge shout out to our school board and
Yes,
superintendent for pushing this.
that's
I
right.
I I would just like to add something because to once again thank Mr. Lawrence and the school board because he didn't mention also they've already been saving quite a few lives in Dade County because they have also added automatic defibrillators to the fields
Um,
in all of the Dade County schools, and I am really proud
that's
to be
awesome.
a resident of Dade County because of the incredible work by our school board. So thank you so much to all of you.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Wow. Seeing everyone work together, like you said, for bettering the lives of families and children everywhere. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to put up a screen here. You might want to screenshot that with more details of further research if you'd like on this topic. But I want to say thank you again for joining us. And I want to draw your attention to next month's parental guidance webinar. We do these every month for you. This was a special episode because we wanted to get this topic in front of you. But again, if you visit parentalguidance.org, all of the previous episodes, you can sign up for future episodes. You'll be able to get the link to this episode and forward it on to a friend. Again, drop that in your group chats and send it to your child's classroom, your sports team. I just think it's important information that everyone needs to know. And again, join us next month, Thursday, June 19th. We're going to be back at noon For parental guidance, talking about scoliosis, growing strong and standing tall, how you can protect your child's posture early in life. Learn when spinal changes commonly begin and how to spot scoliosis in your children. Understand the common causes, the warning signs, the treatment options. We're going to have a trusted orthopedic expert with us. So you can think, our back pain, uneven shoulders, poor posture in my child, is that a sign of something more? So don't miss it. Join us for this essential guide for parents navigating the growing pains and good spinal health. So that will be Thursday, June 19th at noon. And again, parentalguidance.org for all of our previous episodes. And just thank you again, Dr. Moss, Mr. Lawrence. Continue the good work, both of you. We just appreciate you so much.